Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar tonight, which is entitled The Holistic and Spiritual Guide to Breast Cancer. So my name is Gayle, and I'm a holistic life coach and a meditation coach for Illuminations, and I'm an experiencer of breast cancer myself. So this, apart from the fact I also run a global women's group called When Women Gather, and I always want to make something of Pink October because it's a very common kind of cancer, and I want to highlight and bring to women's attention the need for awareness in checking and understanding what cancer is, and the consciousness and care around prevention and recovery. So my experience was, I'm very grateful for my experience actually, because I was lucky enough to find my lump in my breast very early, and it was kind of the size of a pea, so I was very lucky to just feel it one day and decide to go and get it checked out, and they discovered stage 1 breast cancer. Now the interesting thing about that was the fact that I'd had mammograms and a manual check and ultrasound maybe 8 months before that, and they came up clear. So in the space of 8 months, this small lump appeared. And I'm not someone who would get my breast checked regularly anyway. So it was just kind of quite a shock. This time last year, I went to interview in a local hospital, in a local women's hospital, a team of blind ladies that manually check women's breasts. Now, apart from the fact it provided gainful employment for these blind ladies, they have a heightened sense of touch, partly because they can't see. So they're very good at being able to detect lumps which are over 5 mil in size. So I went along to this hospital a year ago to just conduct an interview with the people there, because I was very impressed with what they were doing. And I uploaded it onto my social media and made a thing about it. And then within a year, I'm experiencing it myself. So there's so much to talk about with the whole word and the charged word of cancer. I mean, it comes with a lot of baggage, right? And as a holistic health coach, I'm interested in somebody's health in a 360-degree way. And let's look at this, for example, like a meal. Look at your dinner plate, for example, that you want a balanced meal, you want a little bit of protein, you want a little bit of vegetables, you want a little bit of carbs, you want some water, you want a balanced plate, basically. Not too much of anything, but everything in balance. And that's kind of the way I view, and holistic health practitioners view holistic health, that it's not just about diet, having a good diet. Everybody knows the basics, the ABCs of keeping healthy, right? You know, having a good diet and getting exercise. But it's not just about those two things, actually, because within diet, there's a whole kind of vast scope of the nutrition that you can take and the deficiencies that you might be gaining. And are you doing the exercise in the right way, and enough of it in the way that suits you and your body and fits in with your lifestyle? You know, lots of us don't even find the time for exercise. It's not just those two things, though. It's about getting adequate sleep, good quality sleep, adequate rest, R&R and relaxation. It's about having a healthy relationship with yourself, so self-love and self-care. It's about having a healthy relationship with others, including your intimate others. And it's about having a healthy relationship with money also. And it's about having a healthy, balanced consciousness, and one which we may or may not realize we have, that would have accumulated various paradigms and belief systems from when we were children. So our consciousness greatly affects the outcome of our health, health and what we expect will happen to us and how we expect to be. Some of us have ideas that we're a strong person or have a strong constitution or a weak constitution, or I get sick easily, or you know, I get tired easily or overwhelmed, or I never get sick, or if I get sick, I always get colds, or I always get cold sores, or I'm the kind of person for a heart attack. We tell ourselves, we all have a narrative. And that's very important, our consciousness into the way we handle any chronic disease, really, if and when we get it, including cancer. So being Pink October, I naturally wanted to talk about breast cancer, and I just wanted to start with a very stark fact that breast cancer is the most common cancer in America for women, except for skin cancer. And it's statistically, it's on the rise. And I dare say with this growing level of pollution that we have in this world, and the advent of EMF waves and all these kind of polluting energies in our atmosphere, that the number of cancer patients will rise. So this is something that isn't going away quickly. And it's also something that has a lot of background in terms of there's a lot of money behind it in the pharmaceutical industry. There are known protocols. There's the allopathic way of looking at medicine, and then there's the natural medicine way of looking at healing. But it's a huge industry, the cancer industry, and it's hard to see between the lines and know fact from fiction, because we hear so many things about how to treat cancer or how to prevent cancer. It's hard to know what to do if we find ourselves in that situation. So let's talk about immune system first of all. Let's go into immune system. So we don't get ill if we have strong immune systems. Our immune systems are equipped with the way when we are born, they're equipped to be strong enough to fight any foreign virus or condition that comes into our body's environment, and it's strong enough to fight and maintain balance. And it does an excellent job. You know, we have something like 600 trillion cells in our body working day to day in usual perfect harmony with us. But, you know, there are things in our environment that can weigh on our immune system, and it's like piling lots of stuff on a donkey. Eventually the donkey's going to give way, right? So when we fill our bodies with food that puts a strain on it, so gluten is pretty much ruinous for health. As much as I love croissants, it's not a great thing for health. It creates inflammation in the body, and there are a number of foods that do, for example, coffee and alcohol. Sugar is a big bad one. So there are things that place a burden on our immune system. And it's the foods that we put in our mouth. It can be the air that we breathe. It can be our environment in the home. With electromagnetic frequency coming out of gadgets and devices that we have, you know, our phones and our laptops also. It can also be the accumulation of heavy metals in our body. And we gather these by using various utensils and kitchen foil over the years, and it stays in the body. It lodges itself in various organs and tissues of the body. And there's a lot of heavy metals found in fish too, and in canned and tinned goods. So there's another thing that burdens the immune system. Then we have all kinds of imbalances that happen in our gastrointestinal tract that further impair the ability for the immune system to work. So a big one is Candida, an overgrowth of yeast infection in the body. And this is very, very common. Most of us have it, actually, whether you realize it or not. It comes around by eating excess amounts of sugar over a prolonged period of time. And it builds up and builds up. So in our gut, we have our good bacteria and our bad bacteria. And the good bacteria is usually enough to keep the bad bacteria in check, unless the bad bacteria suddenly gets a lot of fuel. So if it gets a lot of food that causes inflammation, a lot of sugary food like yeast, if you think what grows yeast, it's sugar. and alcohol, right? So sugar, when it ferments, turns into alcohol. So if we take in a lot of sugary products, and I don't just mean eating candy and chocolate, I mean, you know, the sugar that's found in a lot of manufactured processed foods and breads, you know, they have sugar added, you know, baked beans, tomato ketchup, all these kinds of things that have sugar added. There's an accumulative effect. And if the bad bacteria builds up, you get the yeast overgrowth, and the yeast overgrowth can actually take over the colonies of good bacteria in the gut. And then that's what you call candidiasis, right? So that's called candida, and it can manifest in the body in a number of ways. For example, vaginal thrush or oral thrush, or it can go to the brain and it can create foggy thinking, sort of dizziness, lightheadedness, lethargy. So candida is actually a big underlying cause, in fact, of cancer. Nobody gets cancer without candida in their system, without an overgrowth of yeast. So it's one of the precursors actually to cancer. Another fact about cancer is nobody really gets cancer without any deficiencies of minerals in their body. So patients who have cancer, they usually have deficiencies of one or multiple minerals, quite often magnesium or chromium, selenium, iodine. So these are all very important things which also keep our immune system running well. So a reason why someone will end up with a chronic illness is because the immune system has become so burdened with lots of other things. It may be an overgrowth of yeast, it may be heavy metals in the body, it may be polluted air, it may be a toxic environment, it may be toxic psychological relationships as well, toxic emotional relationships. Stress is a big one as well. So there's a 360-degree scope of what can compromise the immune system as well. So there are so many things that can overburden the immune system and put us in a fragile and exposed state where we may develop circulating tumor cells in the body. So without sounding too bleak, let's talk about the flip side of cancer. Now, being someone who has been very interested in health and spirituality for most of my life, I'd often pondered what it would be like to get cancer before I actually had it. I know that sounds really weird. I don't know if I'd kind of drew the experience in to myself, you know, by law of attraction, but when I realized I had it, I understood immediately that for me, there was a huge gift there in it for me too. And I needed to be very grateful actually for learning where I was in this space and time and this point in my life to understand why I got it and how I'm going to deal with it. And I knew that there'd be a lot of growth to come out of it as well. So I looked at it because it was very small, like it was a magic pea, and there were going to be things that I'd need to explore around my own consciousness that allowed me to develop this condition in my body. And as I said, cancer comes with a lot of baggage. It depends how you view it. And really, it's a scary word, you know, the big C word, but it doesn't have to be that way, because cancer is merely an overgrowth of a certain kind of cell that's not serving your body. And really, pretty much to get it in check, you just have to get your immune system in check, reduce the inflammation in your body, and find ways to tackle and kill head on the circulating tumor cells, and it will go. I believe that a negative thought is more of a killer than a bad germ or a bad cell. And I think that the way that you think is everything. The thoughts that you have, they trump everything else. So I knew I had my work on my hands with my diagnosis. And I did face the fear, because you are confronted when you hear that word with very bleak possibilities. And I was not prepared to go there. I think most people are not prepared to go there. So I had a good look at my consciousness. In understanding the consciousness of someone who has cancer, let's look at the metaphysical causes of illness and disease. So there may be a physical root and a physical cause of a disease, but it would have come from an energetic place first and foremost before it manifested in the body. So it may have been a certain way of holding yourself, or a certain way of being, or a certain way of thinking. And this is what caused me to really look quite deeply into the concept of victim consciousness. And concept of victim consciousness is very interesting, actually. It's a triangle. There are 3 types of victim that can carry with them a victim consciousness. And victim consciousness, like I'm the victim, things keep happening to me, or things happen to me, can be installed like a computer program very early in your life. You know, as a child, you'll witness certain things in your home, and then you'll develop this consciousness, whether you're aware of it or not, that you're a victim. Now, this is a necessary spoke in the wheel to understand when you're understanding any chronic disease or illness such as cancer. Because when you look at one's consciousness, you've got to address this whole aspect. Now, this triangle of victim consciousness, there are 3 kinds of victim in the victim consciousness, and they don't stay the same. You can change the kind of victimhood that you carry in your consciousness. So there are 3 types. The first one is the rescuer. The second one is the persecutor. And the third one is just pure downtrodden victim. So all 3 of those characters are still victims displaying victim consciousness, but 1 or 2 have slightly more power than the one who's completely subdued and is a victim. So you may have grown up in your house with a parent or a family member or a guardian that was persecuting a lot, so having a go at you and making you feel bad, and so you felt put on and persecuted, and in this situation you'll feel like a victim. So there's a victim scenario. However, the persecutor themselves, they may be putting out a lot and shouting and moaning and blaming, but they're doing this because they also feel like a victim. And they don't know what to do with it, so they blame it or put it onto other people because they can't hold it themselves. It makes them feel more powerful to turn into a victim that is persecuting someone else than to just be completely downtrodden and at the bottom of the triangle. The other kind of victim is called the rescuer, also very common. The rescuer is someone that does not know how to process their own feeling of being a victim, so they go to help other people all the time. So they can spend their whole life, or they can go into an occupation where they're helping others and in service to others without ever acknowledging their own victim consciousness. And they spend their time as victims helping other people instead of trying to process their own situation. Sometimes the rescuer, when they do so much for another person, they can get resentful, and then all of a sudden you'll find that they turn into the persecutor. They'll then start having a go at the person or the people that they feel are taking advantage of them and saying, I'm not having this anymore, and da-da-da. They'll turn into the persecutor. And then the people that they've been helping become victims even more. So it's a triangle where a character can move up and down and around. You can go through all different 3 types of the role, but it's essentially the same thing of victim consciousness. So I had a look at this in relation to people that experience cancer. And it seems that people who experience cancer have a level of victim consciousness, have some kind of level of programming in the back of their mind, which says that things happen to them and they should maybe just take it. And cancer is very much something that bubbles beneath the surface. And then, you know, you see it substantially, you know, quite a long time later. But cancer is one that really reflects a metaphysical beginning of things left unheard or unresolved. Now, looking into victim consciousness as a way out of this, as a way to rise above this, and in healing for something like any chronic illness or cancer, you need to look at the victim consciousness that you carry, any programs from childhood or in a long-term relationship or being with your children. Are you carrying something through with your children, for example, in the way you communicate with them? And the way to overcome this is to rise above this victimhood triangle, to observe a consciousness. So to become aware that you have been a victim and you've been on that triangle, and start to observe in what way you are being one of those three things. The more you observe it, the more you rise above it. And this is a very important and integral part of healing, to develop an observer consciousness. So this is a very important thing. So when I have clients who have had this same experience, we really go over victim consciousness first and foremost, because it's one of the first things we need to change around, because thoughts are everything. They trump everything. It doesn't matter if you do lots of other good things and you keep thinking negative thoughts about yourself, or you're not worthy, or things keep happening to you. You'll just keep giving off a resonance and a vibration that things should happen to you. It's very common. So let's talk a little bit about self-checking and the diagnosis protocols for breast cancer. So I advise that everybody checks their breasts once a week, okay? And you know, the guides tell you to go in circular motions with your 2 fingers or your 3 fingers around your breast, and including the armpits. And if anyone needs to be shown, you just need to visit your gynecologist or your local women's hospital or gynecology section or breast center, where this can be demonstrated to you. And there are lots of videos on YouTube also. But this is something that I urge you to do, because there's a difference in the stage of cancer in the size of the lump that you find. So a difference between a 1 centimeter lump and a 2 centimeter lump is a difference, could be the difference between a stage 1 and a stage 2, or a difference between a 1 centimeter lump and a 4 centimeter lump is a difference between stage 1 and stage 4, for example. So it buys you time when you can find these things earlier on, and you have a lot more freedom and flexibility in the way that you go around your treatment. With the medical diagnostic protocols, there are the usual ones that you're asked to do, and they would be the mammogram and a manual check and an ultrasound. Now, what I learned in my experience, well, I actually had a few mammograms myself in my life, and then I really learned when I delved into the whole subject of cancer that mammograms are carcinogenic. As hard as that is to hear, it's true, because they are X-rays, they are radiating your breast, and in a mammogram what's happening is your breast is being squeezed out really flat on a plate, and in a very vulnerable state where it's squeezed really long, they're then putting an amount of radiation in which increases your chance of getting breast cancer in the future if you haven't got it. So I would say avoid mammograms and go for ultrasounds. It's a far less invasive and carcinogenic route, and usually more effective. And there are people that specialize in breast ultrasound. There's also another kind of scanning and diagnostic tool called thermography, which is like using radar of heat in the body, and it goes over the body. And say, for example, if it scans your breast, you'll be able to detect with the thermography that where there are places in the body that are extra hot because something's going on there, they'll light up. There'll be a red patch on the screen. So that's another healthier, more holistic way to be diagnosed. But wherever possible, I would suggest that you avoid a mammogram. So let's talk about how to avoid cancer. Let's talk about that. So there are so many things you can do. Diet, obviously, we need to talk about the fact that you need to eat lots of healthy green vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, and if you don't manage to get a lot, you can make a healthy spinach smoothie. I've always done a smoothie with blueberries, spinach, and celery. Sometimes I add a green or red apple if I want it to be sweeter, but I get 2 big handfuls of spinach in a smoothie like that every day. Less carbohydrates and less gluten because it's inflammatory, and lots of water. And let's talk about sleep. Sleep is very important for the immune system. So when you switch off at night, it actually gives your body and your immune system a chance to repair itself. And it's not to be underestimated. Now, I can say that I'm someone who classically didn't ever sleep enough because I'm so busy, but this has now become my priority. So if you think about in the animal kingdom, what happens to animals is when they hurt themselves or they injure themselves or they become sick, they curl up into a ball and they sit for a few days where they can't be found, or they'll go under a rock, or they'll hibernate for a month or two. That's exactly what we should do when we become really sick. We should go into sleep mode and shut down so our immune system can try to recover. Stress is a big precursor to chronic illness. So really taking care to minimize the levels of stress you have in your life and make that a priority, because there's nothing more important than your health. Then there are a number of supplements that I recommend you take. Curcumin has wonderful benefits to prevent breast cancer, and it's the active ingredient in turmeric. It's kind of an orange powder, and you can get that in capsule form, and you can buy that on Amazon, and just make sure that you buy it with black pepper so you get better absorption in the body. So curcumin. There is a supplement called DIM, D-I-M, which is a great breast cancer preventer. And then, of course, B vitamins. Take a very good quality B vitamin supplement. And I personally like liposomal vitamins, ones that are gloopy liquid gels. You need to buy high quality ones of those, and you put them in water and you drink them, you knock them back, but they don't dissolve in the stomach. They get passed straight through the stomach lining into the bloodstream, so you don't lose any, but you can get some really high quality B vitamins. High levels of vitamin C always helps your immune system and your nervous system. So if you can take a good quality vitamin C, a liposomal C, that would be great. Coconut oil and omega-3. So kind of coconut oil is the same thing as your omegas. But taking coconut oil, a very high quality coconut oil by spoon every day, will keep the bad stuff away. And it's also very good for prevention of Alzheimer's and dementia too. Flaxseed oil, another good one. What else we have? We're eating lots of good fats. So walnuts, almonds, avocados, all the good oils, all the good seeds, sunflower seeds. What else do I take? A very important one, apricot seeds. Apricot seeds have one of the highest concentrations of vitamin B17, which is known to kill cancer cells. So before you may find a lump, wherever you find it in your body, you'll have circulating tumor cells. We all do. We all have cancer cells in our body. Doesn't mean to say we have cancer, because it means our immune system is doing its job and it's kind of munching up and killing the cancer cells when they find them, unless our immune system is impacted, of course, and then they can't kill off the tumor cells, and then they start to take a seat in the body. They make a little room in the house and they start to form a lump. Eating apricot seeds, though, with their high concentrations of B17, they actively find tumor cells and they kill them. It's a very potent thing. So you can buy these on Amazon, or just buy apricots and eat the seeds. What else do I take that's very good? So many things at the moment. So what I decided to do with my cancer, the allopathic Western medicine prescription for me was to take a course of radiation, and then go on some hormone tablets for another 10 years of my life. And I looked into it and I researched all the alternative methods, and I realized that there was so much available that meant I didn't need to go through radiation treatment. Now, all these alternative treatments are available to people who do want to go through conventional treatments like chemotherapy or radiation. So it's not like you do one or the other. You can do both. You can do an integrated version. I decided, because of where I was in my life and where I found myself with my cancer and what stage it was, to leave for now the conventional method and just try the natural methods. So there are so many things you can do. I've upped my level of sleep. I've looked at my victim consciousness. I have bought very high quality supplements, and I'm taking 30 to 40 supplements a day. I also take intravenous nutrition as well, and intravenous antioxidants. So this is a known, tried and tested protocol, and there are many clinics around Europe and the US which have naturopathic oncologists which deal with a cancer patient in very similar ways. There are certain things that work with a lot of people, which is very high levels of intravenous vitamin C. So extraordinarily high levels of vitamin C put straight into the bloodstream. You couldn't possibly have this by tablet because it would make you feel so sick. But if you have it put into your bloodstream, it creates so much strength in your immune system so it can do its job, and it also tackles tumor cells head on. So the name of the game when you have cancer is to reduce inflammation in the body, make the immune system work again. So take away anything that's burdening it. So rid yourself of candida. You may have parasites, rid yourself of parasites. You may have heavy metals in the body, so you need to chelate them from your blood and get rid of heavy metals in your body. You need to eliminate any polluting air and any toxic relationships or people or burdens or stresses in your life. You need to do the full 360 degrees. When you find that you've got your immune system working, you've eliminated all the things that were attacks on it, you find that your immune system can do its job. Now, the immune system can do its job in future tackling of cancer cells, and the remaining cancer cells can be dealt with high levels of antioxidants and the supplements such as DIM and eating things like apricot seeds can do. Melatonin has been proved to be very effective and useful as a supplement to use when you're suffering with breast cancer or to prevent breast cancer. CBD oil, cannabis oil, is also known to be very effective as a supplement to prevent and ease in the healing of cancer too. So I take a CBD oil without any THC, any of the stuff that makes you feel high, and I take that at bedtime. I take glutathione, which is one of the best antioxidants. I take alpha lipoic acid intravenously, and I take occasional vitamin D injections, although it's good to take vitamin D tablet supplements as well. And I take ozone therapy, which is ozone gas, which is known to charge the cells in the body with high levels of oxygen so it can strengthen your immune system and fight the cancer cells. It's wonderful to get ozone therapy because you leave with a very clear, crisp mind with lots of energy, and you feel very strong. So that's a nice one. And then detoxing is a very important part of staying clear from any chronic illness. So constantly making sure, well, not constantly, but regularly taking a detox for your body. So if you are someone that doesn't have cancer, then you really should look at having a detox once or twice a year, doing a liver flush, or doing a retreat where you can do a proper kind of detox, or doing a 24-hour fast. There are also ways to detox by doing coffee enemas. You can go to retreats or spas where you're given coffee enemas. and you can clear out heavy metals and toxins from the bowel. And there are things called infrared spas or infrared saunas, where you can eliminate through the pores of your skin the toxins that are in your body. So these are all very important ways to detox. Not forgetting, of course, exercise. Now, rigorous exercise, now I would say 40 minutes 3 times a week where you're sweating is so good for the body. I mean, yeah, let's take away the dimension of how it makes you look in a bikini maybe, but what's more important is that you're able, when you sweat, to sweat out the toxins that you've accumulated recently. So regular exercise, including saunas where you sweat, are very good for detoxing. So what else can we talk about here? Really, just what I wanted to do was open everybody's mind up to the world of cancer. It isn't really such a scary world. It's one to be aware of, and it's one to be mindful of, but it's not something that defeats. It doesn't have to defeat you, you know. There are so many people in this world that are using their experience of cancer to become very empowered and become healthy beyond levels of which they've never felt or achieved before in their life. And there are so many oncologists and naturopathic oncologists around the world, and clinics and methods. And there are lots of people who are very successful with even the worst kinds of cancer. Intermittent fasting is something that I never brought up earlier, but that is a genius way of dealing with health and keeping the immune system in check. So whether you want to do a 16-8, well, ideally a 16-8 is a good place to start, but if that's hard, start with a 14-12, and then a 16-8 diet where you're eating for only 8 hours of the day, and then you're not eating for 16 hours of the day. But giving your gut a chance to rest gives it a lot more chance to absorb what it has in its system and to process and eliminate what it doesn't need, so it's not burdened, and it also gives your immune system a chance to stay on top of itself. One thing I use in my life, and I use with my clients, which really is not to be underestimated, is breath, affirmation, and prayer. Now, those who go to yoga classes know that, you know, the way you have to breathe when you do yoga is so lovely that it can make you feel completely blissed out and make you feel very high after leaving the class. It increases your quality and your sense of joy. And pranayama is not to be underestimated because it oxygenates your body. It brings balance to the blood gases in your system. And oxygen, as I spoke about with the ozone therapy, is very good for the immune system. So there's another one. Yoga is great as long as you're listening to your body and not overexerting yourself. And one superb thing, which I recommend for anyone in all walks of life anyway, is meditation. So finding that place every day to connect with yourself and to connect with Source is a super elixir for health, immunity, joy, happiness, getting everything in perspective and balancing everything out. I get a lot of my clients to practice affirmations. And in the case of people who experience chronic illness or disease, it's about forgiving and letting go. So I say the affirmation, I forgive and I set myself free with clients. And taking time for self-care, taking time to say no, and using your boundaries if something's too much, or if someone's asking too much of you, or you need time alone, or you need to step back, or you're taking too much on. Loving yourself, that's another form of self-love, using your boundaries. And taking time to laugh and have joy and dance and do the things that make you happy, to do something that you feel passionate about, and to just, you know, do all the things that you came here to do, basically. You know, life can get so serious, and it's actually really supposed to just be light and fun and enjoyable, you know. We all forget that. We all can take ourselves and each other and the things in it too seriously. Forgiveness, I've mentioned that with the affirmation that I said I use, but forgiveness is a big one, especially when you're talking about your own victim consciousness. Forgiving yourself for letting yourself be in so many situations that compromised your immune system, and forgiving others that you feel have perpetrated against you. And just always know that there are so many ways out there in this brilliant, brilliant world with so many amazing, intelligent, clever people who have found excellent therapies and supplements and ways of being and moving the body and healing the body and treating the body that can always help and support you. So a last word from me is that cancer is an experience to feel grateful for, and quite often it's the beginning and definitely not the end for a lot of people. And it's about what you think and how you look at it, which greatly affects the outcome. It can massively turn things around. Prevention is key and awareness is key. And if there are any of you out there that would like to have a coach or some support throughout a diagnostic process or a diagnosis or an experience of loss or an experience of cancer themselves, then please contact me, please write to me, and I'd be honored to work with you. And I think that's about it from me. Take care. Much love. Bye.